United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so whoever would like to speak, if you could sign up on the paper.
Can we shut the panel? Can we shut the panel?
We can
Really
oh,
loud.
oh.
We're just close the doors?
We're all going heads.
Incoming.
We're writing HVAC. That's why it's on. Is the repairs budgeted? Yeah, but the parts coming in from Japan.
Put it with it so somebody else.
It's a main machine.
I gotta lose it.
I have like 5 in my car.
There's no air.
No
No air, no heat. Again.
So much better.
It is. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
I don't understand the people that like have to have a fan.
Okay, anybody else? While we're
It's our server that needs
going?
it.
or-
I can, that was it.
Okay, Mr. Barton.
So, Jim Barton, 158 South Water Street. Several weeks ago, you guys proposed a budget. You took a good step, first step to properly funding the fire services in the town by bringing the Warehouse Point Fire District back into the town budget after 3 years in Siberia. And then 2 weeks after the first budget failure, took a step back from there and removed a lot of the funding. Now you have an opportunity to restore it, and I would urge you to do that. This town has 2 fire departments which provide fire services to all of the residents in town. We can't get along without either one of those fire departments. Some people might have a problem, I don't know if they have a problem with the word department. Maybe some people illogically think that one town means one fire department. And maybe they should think that these are like 2 squads of a platoon or something like that, but these 2 units work together and provide services for the entire town. The entire town and all of the people in the town benefit, and all of the people in the town need to have skin in the game. For 3 fiscal years now, the Warehouse Point Fire District taxpayers have shouldered the burden of about 3/4 of the cost of fire services, and the Broadbrook taxpayers, 1/4. This needs to stop. It really does. The fire services have to be funded equitably, and all of the beneficiaries of the service need to pay for them. Now, I think it's pretty simple. If you and I, any of you and I went out to lunch every day or every week, and I was paying the bill every time, I know it wouldn't take you very long to realize that you ought to pay half of that lunch tab once in a while, or all of the time. You're all reasonable people. You get that. You must get that. And that's pretty much the same thing I'm saying here. You really have to recognize what the fire services cost and who's responsible for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill, Lopes.
Bill Lowe's, Melrose Road. I'd like to speak about the school budget. The state average for cost per student is $16,259. East Windsor's cost per student, $22,200. $218, way over. We aren't getting benefits from the school by increasing the budget every year. The last 4 years, their increase has been 28% increase. In 4 years. We just can't afford that. There's something wrong with the school system in East Windsor. The students are not ranked anywhere near the top. They're ranked 113, way towards the bottom. Ellington, right next town, 44, way up there. Southfield, 33, up there on the top. South Windsor, 30. Where are we? 113. We're not getting benefits for increasing the budget every year for the school system. I urge you to cut it down to the 2%. The voters in town don't want this here. We've shown that in 2 votes already. 300 vote difference from yes to no. We're sick and tired of having the school budget increased every year and taken away from the rest of the town benefits.
Go ahead, I'll raise your hand. Go ahead.
Charlie Szymanski, 57 Rockville Road. I want to talk for a second about the cut made to the Warehouse Point Fire Department. I think that cut was not correct. That people in this town, that was an example, if you don't have children, you're still paying a tax on the schools. And no one complains because that's the right thing to do. Everybody contributes towards the education of the town. And the same with the fire department, that the people that live in the Warehouse Point district, they're paying for a percentage of the cost for the Broadbrook Fire Department. In addition to that, because there has not been any funding, they're paying 100% of the cost of the Warehouse Point district. And I had brought up at the selectmen's meeting about appropriating a sum of money this year, and that we gradually move over a 3-year period, so the people there are not being penalized and paying really twice for what they're getting. It's just not fair. And making this appropriation back to them is the right thing and the fair thing to do to the taxpayers throughout the town.
Thank you.
Can I quickly add to that? Charlie Norvell, 7 Brendan Terrace. You know, what Jim said and Charlie said is absolutely correct. One of the problems is that when you guys first put Warehouse Point Fire into the budget, you didn't put it in for enough to offset the tax difference. If it had been put in for the full 432 amount, then what Warehouse Point Fire would have charged for tax on the people would have offset the difference made as to what you guys had put in. And because you only put it in for 232, it didn't meet that difference. So it still cost the East Windsor taxpayers more money if they voted yes in favor of that versus voting no.
So, I had another thought. You guys work hard and long during budget season, you come up with a budget, you go through hearings, you go through meetings, you receive budget requests, you deliberate, you think about it, and then you propose a budget to the voters. That budget seems to me should be something solid, foundation. If it's rejected by the voters, instead of going back and playing with numbers again and picking winners and losers, maybe you should go back and do something across the board. And usually the budget needs to be reduced, obviously, because people are rejecting the budget because they're so if it has to be reduced, it should be reduced across the board, I think, with certain exceptions. That is, lines that were not increased, lines that are new, like the fire district, or lines that are absolutely known to need an increase, like an insurance premium, where you know the dollar amount that needs to be increased. You don't want to reduce across the board those things, but if you have to reduce, then everything that was increased should probably be reduced across the board by whatever percentage it takes for you guys to become comfortable with whatever will pass next time. And then, you know, I don't know how the voters, maybe if the voters know that, it might make a difference in how people are voting. I don't know, but what we do every year is we try to guess who voted yes and who voted no and why. Some people voted no because the budget's too high. Some people voted no because it's too low. We don't know that. But your budget that you proposed is presumably the best thought out, the best well-researched, the most efficient budget that you can propose, that you've decided to propose for the town. So if you go back after a rejection and move the pieces around, then that tells me that that original budget was not as true as it should have been. That should have been a foundation.
Go ahead, Kathy.
A couple of statements. Sorry I'm late, first of all, but the Board of Education has not received a 28% increase over the past whatever amount of years. I think most of the Board of Finance members are aware that that is not an accurate statement. We've gotten 2% or we've received a little bit more than that last year. Excuse me. We have contractual obligations. We have insurance premiums. We have all the things that everybody else does. We also have the highest amount of employees because that's just the nature of what the Board of Education does. So I feel that what's really interesting is I was going to say what you just said, so I'm going to repeat it, maybe a little different. But I feel that every year when there ends up being a no vote, that it's exactly done what it is. You guys, first of all, I know you work hard at this. I know this is not an easy thing to do right from the get-go, and I appreciate that. But then you go in and try to figure out where can you take a big chunk to try to make it more palatable to the voters. And I very firmly believe that it should be an equal percentage across the board. Not equal dollars, but an equal percentage. If a budget is $1 million, then take $10,000 off. If a budget is $1,000, then take $20 off, whatever, based on the light items to come up, find out what the overall percentages you want to reduce and take it equally. It's really what I think is the proper way to do it. Secondary, there's been a few people that have talked about cutting back on garbage expenses, and I would hope that, not for this year, but for next year, I guess because of contractual obligations that you have with the place that takes care of our garbage. Personally, I put out more than twice as much on my recycles, which is put out every 2 weeks, than I do in my garbage. Most of the time my garbage is just not even a quarter full. So I think to look at that for next year as an area to reduce costs might be beneficial, to maybe go to an every other week program similar to what we have for the recycles. And thirdly, I don't know if it's possible, but maybe we can increase revenue across some other areas. Again, it would hit just about most people. Increase the licensing fees for dogs, increase the costs associated with taking out permits and so forth, a way to offset so that we're not constantly hitting the exact same groups over and over again. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Bob Like, 80 Rye Street. I'd like to think philosophically that this will be the last year that we all have this 2% burden hanging over our head during every budget referendum. I'd like to think that I, for one, can keep on track and say tonight's hearing and making recommendations and giving you my thoughts is all about subtracting and adding and dollars and cents. It's not about policy, it's not about administration or anything else. And with that in mind, I would like you to restore the budget to the Warehouse Point Fire Department. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, so we are going to close the public hearing at 7:16 PM. And go into our special meeting. No need for pledge. Everybody's here. Yep, everybody's here. Are we good? All right, so attendance, we're good, no appointments of alternates. Do I have an approval of the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
Public participation? Okay, you guys got an email for public participation from Mr. Bowser.
It's in the package.
It's in the package.
Yeah, it's right behind
He
the
couldn't be
agenda.
here because he is in Hartford this evening. It is quite long, so, and I have my glasses, so if somebody else wants to read, because I can't.
Sure.
Without my glasses, thank you. And that's part of our participation.
The results of tonight's budget referendum are disappointing to many and gratifying to others. Given the changes that were made between the first referendum proposal and the second, there is information to be gleaned that should be considered as the Board of Finance prepares for the third referendum. Considering that the changes made between the two referenda consisted mainly of modest reductions to the Board of Education and a more significant reduction to the appropriation for the Warehouse Brook Fire District, the change in support is telling. In District 2, Broadbrook, the percentage in favor during the first referendum was 41.7. In the second referendum, the percentage in favor was 42.17, essentially unchanged from the first referendum. At the same time, the percentage in District 1, Warehouse Point, in favor was 37.6 in the first, compared to 29.9 in the second. As I read the results, the substantially similar results in Broadbrook, in contrast to the 8% drop in support in the Warehouse Point District, suggest that support for the fire district appropriation is a concern to voters. This is something that hadn't previously been confirmed by voter data, but had been suggested anecdotally. And, okay, thank you.
You're good.
I think in light of the comparative data, the Board of Finance should consider restoring the previously reduced recommended appropriation to the fire district and look for budget reduction options elsewhere. Given that there is one referendum to go and that a third failure would result in no appropriation for the fire district, which seems to be confirmed as a priority for voters, restoration of funding for the third referendum would show voters in Warehouse Point that the town was being responsive to their opinion and making good faith efforts to rectify the issue. The solution to this problem has been and continues to be to restore budget funding rather than expand the district or eliminate the district. We should give the voters another opportunity to restore the budgeted funds through a referendum. Thank you for your consideration, Jason Bowser, Selectman.
Anybody else, public participation? I mean, I know we kind of really already did it. All right, on to new business, discussion and action for the budget. All right,
I'll start.
yeah,
I'm ready to jump right in.
good.
I'll start. I had brought this up at our last meeting, and I'd like to start with it again tonight. However, for the record, I'd like it to be known that I had brought this line item up previously to see the direction that the board wanted to go in, not with the intention of cutting it further. I'm going to make a motion, and hopefully I'll get a second for discussion. I move to restore the requested $464,000 in the line Warehouse Point Fire District lump sum under fire services.
I second.
Hold on, I'm writing. Okay. First, second, all right. Any discussion?
This situation has been weighing heavy on me for the past several weeks, especially this past weekend. I did approach Chief Barton on Monday at the parade. I would like an opportunity to discuss this further with him because I do want to work towards a solution. Based on the voting numbers in the past two referendums, District 2 stayed fairly the same. However, District 1 dropped significantly by approximately 8% with the reduction to the fire district. The divide and the tension in this town is becoming very obvious. It isn't right that people feel that they aren't being represented. For me, sitting up here, it is an honor. We were elected by the people of the town to represent all, and we have an obligation to do just that. It's our responsibility to represent and serve all the residents equally. Let's stop dwelling on the past. There are different people that are involved now, and we should be focusing on representing all the taxpayers of the town and moving forward. It shouldn't be Broadburg versus Warehouse Point. We are East Windsor. We are one community. The board has an opportunity to move forward in the right direction. I hope that my fellow board members will go along with me in passing this motion to relieve the double taxation burden on our fellow residents in Warehouse Point. I believe the voters should have an opportunity to vote on the full requested amount.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, even with, with the first and the second, the no's still would have won regardless. And so I would hope that the folks that are representing Warehouse Point so strongly today are going to drive their neighbors to the polls next time and help us get the vote out. Because we've got to. I mean, the no's are still going to take it, if I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. How many less voted this time than the first time? Like total, not yes and no, just like less people.
It's almost 200.
I don't think so.
It was 200.
It was 200 less people voted? Okay. So what that would lead you to believe too is time number 3, even less people may vote too, which is going to be a problem. Okay, sorry, I just wanted that number. Anybody else?
Well, I'm not sure you can go back to the full amount at this point in time, because everybody's got to get a cut. I do agree with the idea that we got to spread this around a little bit. So if you went back to where they were, but then gave them the same percentage cut that we give everybody else tonight, I think that's fair. So while in my position on this has been clear from the beginning, I do agree with the step in the right direction that we've made. I think at this point in time, kind of the horse has left the barn, and we can't start where we can't start at point A. We're at C. So certainly, I think more than 200 to the 232. I didn't like that number in the beginning. I think the 464 is a stretch at this point in time, though.
232 came from the Board of Selectmen, correct? 464 was presented?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
half.
Okay. Anybody else? Input wise? Okay. So all those in favor?
Aye.
What are we, for which number?
Right now we're the 464. Doesn't mean you can't go back and do a different number. Right now they're on the 464.
Okay, all right,
Alan was just giving his
okay.
pros and cons.
Discussion.
Yeah. So all those in favor of the reinstating the 464?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed. Okay, that motion fails. Let's go back. Any other number that somebody's thinking of?
I could do the 232, I could go back to that. So I'll move to change it to 232.
Sure. Is there a second? Second for discussion?
I'll second.
Okay. So 232 is where we started on the first one.
I just think it's a start, it's a start. It's really hard to add $500,000 in 1 year. So this is at least getting a foot in the door.
I think we already did that. We tried that, and I think a different amount we need to go with.
I don't believe it was the fire district that failed the first budget. I believe it was the board and number that people that are voting against, no matter where we're at, so. I have no problem with the Warehouse Point Fire District being funded. And my problem is that I feel that the Board of Finance is being used to fix a policy issue in town. That's my only issue I have with the way this is taking place. I think this should have been fixed 4 years ago, not in the budget process in 2019, 2020. I've been willing to, I said, I think we need to do this in steps. I said at our budget workshop the first time. Maybe it's a bigger step than I wanted to take this year. I was, figuring over 3 years we could put in, but it is what it is. I think 464, I would not go for that in 1 year, but I suppose I'll support putting the 232 back in.
Anybody else?
I think you make a good point, Bill, that it is us doing policy and it's being forced on us, but it is, all that aside, and there was a lot of failures of policy that got us to where we were, and this is actually bringing it back around to the right side of the tracks. And I think it's got a lot of people actually thinking about the issue.
Agreed. Anybody else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Me. It does, so. Aye. All right, motion passes. All right.
The only no is Kathy.
Yeah, sorry.
Definitely me.
Okay. Good step in one direction, now where do you go?
So do you want me to put that in here?
Yeah, that would be good, thank you very much. And we'd have to say the concept of every line losing as the budget comes up is not a bad concept in theory, but when you have certain departments like the police department that comes in at 2%, when your fault is 2%, it's a little hard to subtract from somebody who's sitting at the 2%, with nothing excessive. So, and some who are not even at 2%. There are some that they went maybe 0.5% or So I don't think that we can do it. I wish we could do it then.
That leaves the general fund at 3.47%. Board of Ed is still at 533 for an overall 433, which obviously the mill rate is going up. $1.25.
Who's next? Can't just sit here with stone faces. You gotta look and find and figure out what direction you want to go.
Okay, I remember that when we were talking about the dispatcher's salary, that we were talking that they wanted $7,000 to make one of the dispatchers a supervisor. There's only 6 of them. 6 people. They have a procedure for overtime, they have a procedure for scheduling, am I right so far? So do they really need a supervisor? So I would move that we took away that $7,000 for the supervisor. This is nitpicky.
Well, really is, that number's not really going to get us anywhere.
No, I know, but, it was hard to go through.
And I think you would have to, and he's here, so you can reach out to the chairman of that board and
I
ask
did, he was
them
nodding
how-
his head.
Whoever's here that can help us.
Yeah.
Their
What it
numbers.
does, it relieves one of our officers that's in command at the police station. We always have someone there 24/7. It relieves that officer from having to do supervisory duties in dispatch also. It gives us a lead person in dispatch that can do training and everything else for the dispatchers. So it alleviates some of the workload for our officers. As is right now, we are short one person in dispatch and we're hiring.
Well, if you do want to make that a motion, you can make
We're
it
still
official,
short.
but
At this moment, 4 officers in the department of 26.
I'm sorry?
We're short 4 officers in the department of 26.
Okay, no, it's a nitpicky thing, so I,
That's all it was coming up with.
All right, so as we know, there were 60 more no votes on Warehouse Point, and we've discussed that, but that's a small part of the picture. There were a lot more no votes, and it's really just not centered around Warehouse Point. So you have to look at the big picture and look at all of it and find out, and unfortunately, is it like a guessing game to a certain extent, I guess? But you've got to look and see who's lost what, who's asked for gains, and who do you think can live with less of a gain. So you kind of have to look at each of your town departments and look at their percentage that they've gone up, look at your Board of Ed, look at the percentage they've gone up, Police Department, the percentage they've gone up, and figure out where you think it's gonna work.
I'll start the discussion, as much as I don't want to start this discussion, but I will start it. I believe the majority of the no votes on this budget come towards the Board of Education budget. Unfortunately, there's a large group of the population, I don't know how large it really is, but there's a group of the population that is dead set against the Board of Education receiving anything more than 2%. Unfortunately, I can almost, in my opinion, what we're doing to that department of our budget is no different than what the state of Connecticut's done to their pensions. We're not funding it properly, and we're going to come to pay for it sooner or later. Part of the payment's going to come from devaluation of property in the town, in my opinion. I think we're going to not be able to attract families. I know a person that's close to me is trying to sell a house in East Windsor. And the real estate agent basically told her if it was in any other town other than East Windsor, they could probably sell a house like that because we're not attracted. It's fact. So I think I've just walked through some of the numbers. We're sending more students out of town because we can't supply with the need here, which cost us every year. From running through the numbers that the Board of Ed gave us, and I just based it off the $24,700,000 number that we proposed in the last one. A little over 2% of the budget from the Board of Education, 2% approximately, goes to funding out-of-town education for students that don't want to be educated in this town. They want to go to other schools. The largest portion of the budget, 26% of the number that we proposed the last time, and again, these are what I pulled from the Board of Ed numbers. I may be off a percent or two, I may be off $100,000 or so. So $6,446,000 is for special education. That includes transportation. That's basically mandates that we have to provide that education. We can't take that away. We have basically no control over what dollars are spent. So to add two of them together, it's almost 29% of the proposed $24,700,000 that went to last time, which is over $7 million that goes to special education and students we educate out of town and the transportation to get them there. So that drops the number actually spent on, I don't want to use the term, regular education in town to just barely over 70% of the budget that's presented. And I don't know if someone can somewhat say my numbers are somewhat correct. I just went by what you gave us. I just think that's a huge portion. It's not, unfortunately, it's money that, and out-of-town education, if the school that they're going to increases their tuition, we have no choice but to pay more for that seat. So it's money, again, if we can't educate them in town, that's cost us more to send them out of town. And that's just, again, that's my opinion and looking at the numbers. So I think by underfunding our Board of Education for the years we've done it, it's hurting property values in town, it's not bringing families to town. And I think it's a detriment to the town as a whole. But unfortunately, the school budget, I think, is the biggest part of why our budgets don't pass in this town. And I don't think that we're being underfunded. I think when you adjust to the percentage of special education and students going out of town, our numbers would be more in line with the state average. And I think it's what we're doing over time is wrong by not properly funding education. If we funded education like we did in Arlington and Suffield and South Windsor, our numbers would look spectacular, but we're not funding it that way. So you can't make that comparison, in my opinion. And that's just a discussion I'll have. I'm not willing to make a proposal on a number. I've been probably the hardest one on the Board of Education all my years in the budget because I seem to be the one to make the number to cut every time, and that's one motion I'm not going to make tonight. I'll let somebody else make it tonight. But unfortunately, I think we have to do it to try and pass a budget, so we're not stuck with the 2% for the Board of Education.
And I will just share that the number at 2% is $469,000. So they would go from the 1.250 increase that we were looking at the last referendum down to $469,000 if we can't get this budget passed. Or any that would be their increase. I do have a sheet that has what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5% all look like. Has numbers if anybody wants it. But
If we go to a 2%, how much would the town get?
well, Warehouse Point would get none, so the town would be fine. Our budget without Warehouse Point in it is, our increase is 1.8.
How much money would the town get if we went to 2%?
I don't know, 13. But we'll be fine. We asked for less than the 2% if you take out Warehouse Point, which would get nothing because they got nothing in last year's budget.
Well, I think that's a concern too, on all fronts, is that if we go to a 2%, the zeros that were never in the budget, which is Warehouse Point, which is the
YSB.
K-9 officer salary, the YSB person, the Youth Service Bureau person, they don't get funded at all because 2% of zero is zero.
Our number would be $279,000.
Thank you.
So, I mean, that's huge. And then 2% for the Board of Ed would be
Detrimental, I think.
horrible. So everybody really loses at the 2%. Well, except for the town, they gain a little bit. But Warehouse Point is part of the town, so you lose them. So if we fail this last one, a lot of areas get hurt.
Feel like we've been here, I don't know how many times, and I've seen good people on this board over the years try to salvage a budget that makes sense, and we go to 2% anyway, because in these years where we have these large no blocks, they're not gonna change their mind. And if you look at the public.
We have to get education people out that want them, I mean, they're the ones crying that they're not getting enough money and the cuts that's gonna happen to them. They need to get themselves out there to vote yes.
Yeah, I understand. I also spent some time, perusing social media, because that's the most wide public forum that we have today, and I noticed that a lot of the people simply are not in command of the facts that were presented this year, period. And they're voting for all manner of reasons and thinking a whole bunch of other things that just aren't factual.
Which is frustrating. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but our flyer went to every single household. That's just, and obviously ended up in the recycle bin many times, but.
Yeah, and it is unfortunate, and what we'll do, because this is what we do all the time, because this is what we're forced to do, is make another massive cut out of Board of Education, and we will continue to reap that, what we saw, which is underfunding, and the town is unattractive to many buyers. Ask any cop, if you want to not have to spend so much on cops, teach your kids a few things. It's unfortunate, but it is exactly where we're at.
Out of curiosity, how many children are being homeschooled? Somebody said there was a large number in East Windsor because it's gotten around, I don't know why, because I have the school system that we have so many homeschooled. I don't think it's the best form of education at all, but do we have any idea on that?
They don't have to report to us by state law, so I don't know how many really are homeschooled. We have a small number who do report. I'll estimate off the top of my head, forgive me, I don't know, 20. But there certainly could be others who choose to homeschool that don't share that.
Well, that said, so there are not many lines that are over 2%, so.
Well, there is, and It seems like I'm always the one. But the paving budget is, got 125,000 in it that it didn't have in it last year. That's quite a bit different, and that's something that affects everybody. So I think you should be looking at that as well.
Paving, which I think is.
Road maintenance. Nothing personal, nothing personal,
It has how much more than last year?
125,000.
Want to pull it up? Sure. So we know we have the right number.
And actually, my spreadsheet's at least one generation old, so I don't know if we cut one ninth of it.
I think we did at one point, but I don't know.
believe it's the same as last year.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's at 75 now?
275.
275.
It's 275.
They
Okay.
requested 500,000, but they didn't get it.
Sorry, Joe.
No, that's quite all right. I mean.
Yeah, we had done it at 4 at one point. You're right with the 125, but that was one of the cuts to try to
That was
get
the
it.
first cut.
Oh, okay, I forgot. I didn't make the cut, it wasn't me.
I mean, you can take it all if you want, but don't
Think that'll work.
call when people are blowing tires out. And
No, you're off the hook, I think.
Can I say something?
Sure,
I-
I'm sorry.
No, sorry. And I'm going off on a tangent here, so but the chairman of the Board of Education here and the superintendent of schools here, and we're talking about the school budget. And I'd like to think outside the box in a sense, and I have Kathy's Facebook post, and it says here that 41% of the students here in this school have a, well, I'll call it ACEs, adverse childhood experience, or at least they're in need. And that compares with Summers of 3, Ellington of 9%, and South Windsor of 12%. So we have children in need that are way above our surrounding towns, and that's very much why we're spending more money. But I don't buy, the school system is the school system, and they're trying to educate kids the way schools educate kids, and they're doing an excellent job. Intervention is part of it, identifying problems. But I think maybe we as a community have to step back and say, wait a minute, why does our community have 41% and with needs, and maybe people outside the school system can start to wrestle with this problem? I think you've got to identify the problem to solve it. And it's just like if somebody says, gee, I live by the river and the river's rising a lot, you know, and they go to the town and say, what are you going to do about it? And the town says, well, we can build some dikes and that would protect you. But the real problem is climate change. And I think we have a bigger problem here than just a money problem. I think, so I would, but I think Kathy's helped identify the problem, and maybe in the future, we should get together, the whole town, and start trying to solve why we have so many students in special need. And maybe we could have programs outside the school to help that situation. So that's all I have to say. Sure, I'd love to.
So there was an article in the Hartford Current within the last week, I don't know exactly what it said, and it talked about why some towns have higher needs and higher need students. And they said that one of the reasons is the zoning and such in more affluent towns, if you will. They don't have housing for people who have economic problems. And by not allowing those zoning regulations to occur, they end up with less students with high needs. It's one of the ways that, I don't know that they're gaming the system, but to me it sounds like they're gaming the system.
Yeah, and maybe we have to go to our state legislatures or something.
You know, that was an article in the Hartford Current talking about that. So I don't know how we can fix that. I'm not advocating that we change our rules to not allow people in and not create housing, but that's a legitimate factor. Go ahead.
And there are services outside of school, to your point. We, you know, with Melissa getting the Youth Service Bureau up and going is a monster resource. Granted, it's in the first year, but that can be a huge resource for families. And I know there are other services available, but oftentimes without public transportation, it's hard for families to access them. But I do want to respond to the point because we agree services available in the community are huge, and there are steps being made toward that. So, but there's still a lot.
Well, thank you, and pardon me for going off on a tangent.
That's fine. That's fine. Next.
I said nothing to you.
I know. I'm just looking. You've gone through every line.
And there's a bunch of small in here that are not gonna. The Cemetery Association.
I mean, the only solution is not going to the 2%. I mean, we can sit here and cut all we want, but unless we get a whole bunch more people out to vote, and I know that you and I talked briefly last time, and you said that you're not allowed to, but encouraging people to vote, whether it's a yes vote or a no vote, because you know the people that have the students are going, which way they're going to vote, but just encouraging them, it can't be completely disallowed. I mean,
The school can't do it. We can't send flyers home, and we can't make announcements through our school messenger, because that only targets a specific population, and that's what makes it illegal, and that's what makes it so that we can't do that. I will not say that outside of that, Kathy Citizen hasn't tried to encourage people to vote, hence the Facebook post and other things that I've been part of to try to get information out to parents and other residents with facts about our schools and our town. I'm not just advocating for our schools at this point. As I'm a citizen here, I'm advocating for everything in our town, our safety, our fire, our schools, our seniors, our libraries, all of it. And we have, there were steps taken to get information out to those parents. I don't know what else we can do, because as citizens, there's only so much we can do as well.
right.
You know, a lot of people who made calls to friends and neighbors, and
Yep, me too.
an email went out to all households of students in the school, that had students in the school. Privately. Right, not from the school, but from a citizen within town who sent those emails with some of the information.
All right.
You want me to assume the chair?
I can't make a motion.
I know you can't, but you can suggest what you'd like them to.
I think they should, obviously, we have to cut the Board of Education, like it or not. And I think that everybody should let the public know exactly where they stand on it. Most of us here were elected. We are accountable, and we should have an opinion. Period. Myself, I think that the 232 that we put back into basically flip it, take 250 out of the Board of Education. Where does that put us numbers-wise?
I think it leaves them at 4.26%, because I did it earlier today. Because it leaves them $1 million. And it leaves us 0.98 mils. So it leaves them at 4.26% at $24,450,000. Leaves them $1 million increase, 426 overall, 370. 0.98 per mil. Where this last one was 1.09. And the cap increase is 2.61%. And I know you guys talked a little bit about revenue when I wasn't here last time. We cannot adjust the ECS revenue because the reduction I have in there for just shy of $78,000 is to pay towards the teacher's retirement that the state has out there as a request. So instead of putting it as additional expense somewhere, I can't imagine the state's gonna pay us our whole 5.4 million and then say, oh, by the way, give me back 78,000. They're gonna reduce our ECS by whatever they're keeping for teachers. So that number is off the last state numbers we got, and it was still in there. So that's why ECS is $78,000 less. So there is no revenue adjustment to make.
Yeah. I do have to agree with Alan. To be honest with you though, even with that, I don't know if it's going to. I mean, I think that's a start and where we need to start. But putting that out, I don't know if it wouldn't guarantee you a 2%. I'm just unsure. And the 2% scares me because we lose everything. So that's why, I mean,
I'm not making a motion, but I have a number I wrote down. I don't like it, but I had, for just, and you can just put the number up there, for the school at 24,212,125. And I'm not even sure that's good enough to make it pass. And I really don't know where else in this budget to pull money out of. I've looked at it, I've spent an hour last night after this thing failed, and I don't know where to go. I mean, we can cut Broadbrook Library for $5,000, you can cut the Cemetery Association, you can make little things like that, and it's not good.
No, you're 100% right, and
It's not good
and
enough.
I appreciate you, like, being honest and putting everything out there exactly. I think that's what we all need to do.
I mean, that's my bottom line numbers, and I don't like it. I'm not making a
it's
motion.
not making a motion.
I know,
You're just
I mean, I
yakking.
couldn't say it.
Do you want to see what that does to Hillary?
If you want to.
Brings taxes to 187. Levy to 0.73.
Somebody else have to talk, 'cause I've
I
talked a
don't
lot.
think, I know you have talked a lot. You do good. But I don't think the peanuts are gonna help. I just don't. And I think we have to find a number that isn't going to sink everybody. And I don't know if there's a perfect formula to that. I really don't think so. But I think the no's spoke so loudly that we really just, you don't want to end up at that too. And I know, like Alan, you're saying we're going to end up there because right now we're looking at a repeat of what, you know, we had actually a very positive year last year. And maybe that kind of hurt us in a way because people are seeing that in their taxes and they're not wanting that again around next year. Maybe that's what we're up against, you know? I'm not sure. But I think we have to get somewhere where it's closer, where we feel that it isn't going to fail.
Whenever we get to this point, though, I'm always,
Yeah.
my opinion is I'm not going to advocate for a budget that I think is irresponsible,
I
right?
agree.
And if some people in this town want to drive that to 2% and basically screw everybody, that's their choice. But I'm not gonna help them, period.
Yeah, it is their choice, but it's also somewhat our job to try to make it not happen. And I guess, isn't that the conundrum?
Yeah,
That
it is, yeah.
you're doing something that you don't wholly believe in, but you're doing it because you want to see it pass for the betterment of the town, because if you land at that too, so many things fall apart.
No, point taken.
So it's just, it's actually a catch-22.
As hard as the no's have dug in, I guess I'm thinking that even if we go to 2.5, they're gonna go to the 2.
Yeah.
Just
We went to
because-
1.98 and they failed it.
Yeah,
one
I
year,
was
so
gonna say,
hello.
one year we put it at
Yeah.
1.98 and they said no.
So I tend to agree with Alan. I mean, I came here tonight knowing that I wanted to do something about the fire, but I've gone through it as well, and listening to everybody talk about education and what I've read, it's just, it is irresponsible. It's totally irresponsible for us to cut any further. I mean, they've cut, and now we're taking them to the marrow, and just.
But it's wrong of us also to say, let the voter cut them to 2%, which will do worse than bring them.
Well, we're not
to the
saying
marrow.
that.
Well, we're not saying it, but, right.
If you guys remember the cut list that we provided, that number will take just about everything on it.
Right.
Because the staff couldn't even get down to a 2%.
So my question there, Kathy, we put out something stronger, it fails, what does 2% do to you?
It's just worse.
I've,
But that number's gonna take
No, I don't.
probably every optional tutor, every optional intervention, some of our teachers, athletics, music, arts, drama, they'll all take a hit. I don't
Is this
want
public
to even,
participation?
You can. You know what, to be honest, I don't usually do this. I really don't, to put it out there to the audience, but you know what? We're on time number 3. I have no suggestions because you can only fight the no's so long. So sure, go ahead.
But just remember,
Well, I
speak to
think
the
if
chair.
You're speaking to me.
if the town had more money to spend, because our grand list went up, we could spend more. But it's like your household. You don't get any more money in, you can't spend it. We don't have money to spend, we shouldn't be spending it. And we aren't getting any. In the next couple of years, we're probably going to get more. With Calmar going in over there, with probably the casino in a couple of years, with the new warehouse over there in Warehouse Point, we're going to get some more money in our capital, money to spend. We'll have money to spend. Right now, households don't have any more money to spend. It goes down every year. Seniors have a problem.
Point taken. Charlie, address me though, since I'm doing this.
Charlie Martindale, 7 Grandview. With that same analogy, if your roof's leaking, you take the money to fix it, so it doesn't ruin your entire home. That's all I have to say.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Sarah Andrews, 144 Main Street. I appreciate the extra time I came in the last minute. I don't know what else to say, unlike you. I didn't sleep last night. I was trying to think how we could outreach these voters. I'm a citizen, I'm not on any board. I talk to people. I got a few new voters yesterday that messaged me and said, hey, what district do I go to? So I'm gonna try to encourage those people to come out and bring friends. That's the goal. I was looking at the voting numbers and I'm seeing like, okay, in a perfect world, how we can outreach these voters. So I'm really trying to get our school community fired up. I'm talking to younger parents that my experience of 12 years, what our journey has been, we're trying really hard, and there's more people outside of me that are trying really hard. So I hear what you're saying, and as Mrs. Simonelli said, we're making all the efforts to do that. And I'm like you. I'm not even against you. I'm like, we're all in the same boat here. It's just, it's going to sink us, and I hope going forward that the non-factual information isn't making the community vote no. I really want to get the facts out to the public. So I think we're going to amp it up to this time to get the facts out there to the people. And hopefully hope for the best, because I'm scared. I'm scared like you. So, thank you very much.
I'll come back. Marie?
I think you guys are in the level, because you have to do something more than what you've done, because working down the polls the last 2 elections, people are angry. They're angry that there isn't more development in town. They're angry that their taxes are going up. They're angry that food's going up. They're just angry, and people can't afford it. Even the school parents, you can tell them to come out and vote, but if they can't afford another $15 a month out of their check, they're not gonna come out. And if they do, they're gonna come out and vote no. And the no voters have been strong the last 2 times. I would take a look at your capital improvements that you've got listed and see if there's anything in there that maybe you can put out for another year and not fund them for a 5-year project, fund them over a 6-year project. I wouldn't take away the police cruisers because really you need those, but there's other things that could be in there that you might want to take a look at, see if you can put out a little bit more. But you're in a tough spot. And I've heard comments passed around town that, East Windsor, because they do such a fine job with special ed and early intervention, people want their kids to come. If they're having, and they're struggling, so they're coming to East Windsor because they know they're getting the education they need. Are they buying homes or are they renting? It doesn't matter. They're bringing the kids here. And I would hate for the school to go backwards because they have gone so far. But I'd rather go down lower on that, bring it somewhere between a 2 and a 3% rather than a 2%. Because the 2% is just going to kill all the advances that the Board of Ed has made. And it's not their fault. Children with needs are coming to town. Children with need are being born in this town. And it's expensive to educate, and it's a state mandate that you do. So it's difficult, and it's nobody's fault on the board. I was appalled when I read the comments in the paper tonight from the meeting that was held the other day, the selectmen meeting, in the disparity in treatment that boards and commissions have gotten. Because it's my opinion, as volunteers, you guys are doing that clean job up there, and your heart is in the best interest of the town, but sometimes you just have to bite the bullet and do what you have to do for everybody. Whether you're a yes voter or a no voter, I think you're doing the right thing. Good luck.
And Rivera with Randy Terrace. I was a yes vote on the first vote, and then on the second vote, I was a no vote. And the reason for that was, in the first one, it was presented to me that, we'd be losing all these things with the school, and I have kids in the school, and they use the services, so I understand how beneficial they are. But what really got me, and I think it's something that we need to look at, because when you look at the scenario where the dam is rising or the roof is leaking, you really need to look at that 41% number, because that is what really struck out to me, because I said to myself, it can't be that almost half of our kids require these special needs. What's going on because of that, or what's driving that? And I can't think that it's all because they live in Mill Pond or they're all in rental properties. I don't see how that is really driving that. So that argument really just boggles my mind. I can't put it together. I don't know how it would be 41%. So yes, I was all for the budget. Let's get our kids educated. Let's keep going that way. But when all of that information came out and I really dug in, and it was like, oh, maybe too much information, but I think that we do need to look back and see, why is it 41%? Not because of the demographics, but what is qualifying these kids to be special needs? I know that when I had my child go through the process and the special benefits that were given to him, I was like, oh, that's nice, oh, that's nice, oh, that's nice. But looking at it, there are some things that he could have done without. And I don't mean, I'm not saying I don't want the best for my child, but it was a little much. It was like, oh, they're doing such a great job, and on the outside, I'm like, that's fantastic. This is a great education system. He's getting above and beyond what he needs. I don't know how many other kids are out there like that, where, they can use these benefits, but do they need them all? And I don't think it's fair to say, I'm not saying, limit them, and I'm not saying let's cut, that. I'm sure there's a need and there's services that are provided that are beneficial, but sometimes it's too much, and if we need to relook at how we're classifying them and how we're giving are providing those special services, maybe that needs to be compared to what other towns are doing. And how many are we putting in that box? That's just me.
Thank you. Kathy?
Yeah. So it is not just that we have a 41% population of special needs children or children with special needs. Our demographics are such that they are coming from both income instability and emotional instability. It is not just special needs insofar as having learning disabilities. And I just want to make that clear, that is not what the 41% is. It's economically disadvantaged, and with economically disadvantaged, which tends to go into what might be considered a low housing area, also tends to have, as we all know, perhaps a higher incidence of crime. It has potentially a higher incidence of parents that are maybe there physically but not there emotionally. We have children that are witnessing drug addiction, children that are witnessing alcoholism, children that have parents that aren't home, children that are not eating on a regular basis. We're sending food home with kids. These are the type of children that we have. That's where the 41% is coming from. It is not 41% of our students having special needs. We do have children with special needs as well. We do have mandates. We do have things that we need to do for them, and we're happy to do it for them because they deserve as much opportunity as they can have as well. But please don't get those two terms mixed up because it's not what it is.
I just want to add one more thing. With that information, fantastic, open my eyes. Put that out there, because all we're seeing is that 41%, and for me, I'm like, that can't be. And so if you're grouping all these people together, I think that it should be grouped in a way that is not, maybe just like break it down so that you can get those people back to yes, because special services, you just need to tell them what they're getting, because it would make it a little easier for me to swallow where I know where exactly the money's going and what's driving it, but I just feel like I'm a victim of too much information with not a lot of detail. So when I heard 41%, immediately I'm like, that can't be. They're overspending on that somewhere. And so if you just break it down, I mean, like if you put out the flyer and break it down as to what it means to be in that category, then maybe it's a little easier to move somebody back to a yes. Maybe.
That's fine. Okay, we'll do one more person, and then we're wrapping it up. Oh, okay, you two fight which one? Eeny, meeny, miny, moe. All right, talk quick, Bob.
I empathize with you guys on the Board of Finance the same way that I do with the people on the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen. There's only one of those three groups that gets paid to do the job. Tonight, time is working against you. You got to make a decision. You got to live with it. You got to feel like you made the best decision on behalf of everybody, including your own conscience. Go ahead and make the cuts where you feel like you got to cut them. Next year, we may have a different form of government. I'll guarantee you, I'll help lead the spirit to increasing revenues so you're not facing cutting costs at the same time.
That would be nice.
You know what? I'm going to listen to this. You got a tough decision. I think you guys are making an awful big mistake restoring previous cuts and then cutting the Board of Education off at the knees. Your fire district is going to be funded 100% whether you give them $1 million or $1. They already set their budget. They're not going to die. They may say the double payment, all that, well, they asked for it, they got it. But I think you're sending a bad message, the increasing budgets and then taking it out of the Board of Education so hard. But you need to try to get the Board of Education more than 2%.
Gotcha. Okay, back on track. I don't know, did Marie have such a bad idea? I mean, I've always been opposed to touching capital improvement, but we've done a ton of stuff this year with our general fund. I don't know, is that such a, I'm not saying like destroy it by any stretch of the imagination.
I put 2 cents in there.
Yeah, that's,
Well,
go.
I like to listen to the audience very much. I had somebody stop me in the parking lot, special ed is very, very difficult for this person. And they suggested, I know it's a weird idea, but they gave it to me, I'm gonna put it out there, that for very special, special children, that instead of putting them into public, they should have the parents given almost like a salary, about $60,000, $72,000 a year, and have these children stay at home, so that our normal children are not affected as deeply.
Okay, that's just even against any like laws
I'm
and
just
stuff,
going
so.
what gave to me.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll give that back. So, all right, so back to my, I'm not saying do it.
I'm looking at it.
I'm just saying, I believe we kept it same as last year.
Well,
Sure.
it's
No, I
up
got it.
$3,935.
Now, remember too, though, this is the part where we cannot, like I know it was said, don't cut a cruiser. We can't do that. We can only cut dollar amount. We don't choose the projects. That is not our job. That is, well, I don't know whose job that is anymore.
And the 94 can't change because those are committed lease payments.
Huh?
The 90, there's two pieces. There's 886, 935,
Yep.
and there's
then-
94, 668. This is committed lease payments.
Yep,
So this is
Gotcha.
the only number that can be affected.
gotcha. I'm just saying, you can maybe take a little bit out of there and put it back to the Board of Ed. I mean, we haven't taken anything out anyways, I'm just saying.
Well, you're all thinking, one more comment?
Why you always gotta break the rules? No, go ahead, Hernay.
I'm going to go back to what Bill said when he came in the room. If we don't fund education and we cut this town down to nothing, the grand list isn't growing because we keep cutting these things. If the grand list isn't going to grow until we give people a reason to move here. And we're not going to do that by cutting education and cutting our budget to shreds. I just want to throw that out there. I know it probably doesn't change what you have to do tonight, but I wanted to say it.
Well, I mean, as it is, we can throw it out there. And we can either see it pass and everybody will be excited, or fail and we are in a dire situation. So we have to decide where we're comfortable doing. We may be getting a casino, but I don't think I am comfortable with that gamble.
And it's counting chickens before they hatch.
No, I meant, gambling, it was All right, well, is nobody looking at capital?
I'm looking at it.
Okay. What number are you looking that you would think that you would be able to? Do something with? You what?
There's the numbers with this.
Oh.
Supposedly funded project.
Yeah, I have it. Anybody have it real readily available, what the selectmen approved to fund?
It's right here.
You got it? Okay. So, look at that. Realize that you just funded some things in this last.
No.
It's 400,000 for roads.
That's the biggest number.
What, roads?
Yeah.
It's always the biggest number.
I know, but it has to be.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost half of it.
Okay. But remember too, you can look at the projects, but you can't choose them. I don't know, either CIP or the Board of Selectmen choose them now, one or the other. I
What happens
I
to
mean-
the unallocated money?
It can be reallocated by the Board of Selectmen to a different project. That's interest income. That's been made over the years.
Okay.
It's like $43,000 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
41, yeah, 42. So that's money available?
It could be reallocated to other projects, yes,
By the Board of Selectmen.
by the Board of Selectmen.
So if we were to cut 42,000, then they could use that to reallocate.
Peanutting again.
Weren't we gonna allocate like,
Peanutting again.
7,000 or something for the kitchen and the,
Well, it has to be 20,000 to be CIP.
okay, then we were gonna reduce that by 20,000, I think.
Well, nobody did anything, did they?
No.
There's no motion, there's been no.
What are we talking about?
We have we have a food problem, I think it was talked about
That's-
a little bit
that's
at the May
next.
meeting, that CRT is not gonna provide meals because they've run out of money. So we're not gonna get meals from June to September from CRT.
Only on Mondays.
Oh, okay. But the cost to fix the oven is $7,000. Is that the oven and the system? Or is that only a piece of it?
Ansel system needs to be upgraded in order for us to use the oven again. So it's
Right, but
four.
the two pieces together were 7? Higher than that?
Yeah.
A little more,
Okay.
figure 8.
So the talk was, do we do a whole kitchen renovation and make it food safe code? So that the counters are stainless steel, that the number of sinks you need, and stuff like that, because obviously to have a resource like that and then not be able to use it because it's not up to code.
Right.
So the thought was, do we do a project, but no one's done anything yet.
We're one quote shy of having it all ready to present to you at your next meeting.
Okay.
So just the floor. So it's just about complete.
Okay. So that's where that money, the Board of Selectmen was thinking they would allocate some of it to that new project.
All right, anybody with a dollar amount? It's gotta be more than 40,000, just saying.
Yeah, that doesn't even move the needle, really. It's gotta be-
No, it's just,
Well, do you want me to put the Board of Ed back where it was?
Yes, please, sorry. To my house, before we're looking at like totally skewed numbers. Numbers? 100?
Well, if you're moving the Board of Ed back,
Well, we're not yet.
Make a motion
He
for
didn't make a motion for
Right,
that, so
nobody
we
made a motion
can't leave
yet.
it there.
All right.
Somebody has to make a motion, make it stay.
I forgot that, right?
I'll move, we make the line CIP allocation $686,935.
which is a change.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion? I just think that's a little steep. It was my idea, yeah, but.
You opened the door. I think it may be steep, but that's the kind of stuff that's gonna move the needle. It's.
Yep, I don't disagree. You want to put it there, Amy, and see what happens, you know, so we can, but bring it back again while we're discussing. Oh. That's kind of crazy.
Just solve the budget problems. and-
Yeah.
Whoosh. Oh my gosh.
Why did that not work?
I don't know.
I lost my ink. My 200 wasn't the problem. There we go. So it still brings us to spend at 382. 1.03 mils. $277 tax increase.
Bill, what was your number for board BOE? You know, if they put
24, 212, 125.
What did that
It was
cost?
3.25%, about 500,000. Because it went from 1,250 to 700.
All right, so if you took, okay, so if you took 300 from the Board of Ed right now, not 500. I know, I'm missing your number. Are you gonna remember what they were? I'm sorry.
Kathy, vote.
It's a 950, 405. 306 for spending. 183 for a tax increase. 0.17 months. So basically, you get the same effect of what Bill was doing at the 0.73.
But not as dramatic.
On the Board of Ed, instead it's on CIP.
Yep.
And the Board of Ed. It's not one, it's all.
And leaves Board of Ed at 4.05%.
All right, well, we have Sarah's motion on the floor. So any more discussion regarding the 200,000 off of capital?
Oh, wait a minute. It's not the right number. Well, because it's not 200,000.
And I think it needs to be a little bit more than 200,000, actually.
How come that didn't do that?
886, 935. I don't know. How about that?
Is it taking it from the 883?
Oh, no,
It's because it was off by,
it was going,
that
it was going up by $3,000.
Yeah, it was going up.
So that's why you'd have to take the 3,695 or whatever it was going up.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
From the 880, from the 883, what it was, we went to 886,
Yeah.
935.
Right, okay. All right, you're saying your discussion is that that's not enough out of capital? Okay. Barbara? I have to pull the teeth, so I'm gonna pick on each of you if nobody's gonna talk.
My head said 200 as well. I don't know why you think.
Karen?
I agree.
Bill?
Not so much.
Not so much which way?
Did they go too steep?
He wants to reduce the cut. Next.
Well, that'll be interesting. All right, so no more discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Okay, you're done with CIP. Now you're on to Board of Ed. She has that number in there, but obviously you don't have to go with it, so.
400,000.
I think it has to go down 12 more to make it an even 4. I think the number's 938 is the increase. She don't like.
I would make it even 4, so it looks like it's
Still 4%.
Make it 399.
Comes up sort of psychology. That's what we used to tell. Speak.
Spoken.
What? You're looking at everybody.
We have no motion yet, right?
There is no motion, it's just sitting there,
I spoke.
hovering.
You know, 405, 399, it's, at the end of the day, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. And now we're just putting in numbers with no thought really behind it. We're just trying to get to a number. I mean, I
I don't
know
think
I'm
we're trying to
stating
get
the
to a
obvious,
number,
but-
we're trying to get something more palatable
Palatable.
than a 5%, which people are looking at as too high.
I'm in agreement.
Doesn't mean
I'm
we're
just saying
100%.
that we're not necessarily, I guess we just throw it back on the Board of Education on how they're going to come up with any cut that we're proposing, I mean, we don't have.
Or you, like I said, we can leave it sit and,
No,
like I said, it's like, no, but what I'm saying, it's kind of like, which is the responsible thing to do. Put it forward where you don't think it's gonna go, and then you end up at 2, or try to find a number that you think it's gonna go.
No, I'm gonna do it.
I did, but I can't.
No, I gotta do it. I'm gonna make a motion that the Board of Education go to 24,300,000. I still think it's.
Is there a second for discussion? Okay.
24.3?
Mm-hmm.
All right, discussion?
I don't like it, but I think we gotta try and put something that's gonna pass, and I think that's with the $200,000 out of CIP, which I don't totally agree with, but I'm not gonna agree with anything tonight, but we have to try
I don't
something.
think any of us 100%
And
agree
I
with
just, if we can't accept the 0.75% or 0.75 mil increase in this town, we have a serious issue on our hands. We already have a serious issue, but that's an even bigger issue, so.
So what's this one?
Oh, 0.61 now?
Yeah.
Bill, redo your numbers
can
and get
amend
it.
your-
1.52 for
Amend your motion.
the tax increase.
What is the number? I'm sorry.
The mill is 0.61 mils. 0.61. Because you basically took 600,000 out, and it's 1.52% is the tax increase,
Karen can amend her second.
with a spend of 2.81 overall.
Yeah, I'll amend my motion to put $50,000 back into it, to 24,350,000.
Karen, you good with her? Discussion?
I think it's unfortunate, but I think it's the right gambit. Hopefully, the people that are voting no for the Board of Education are at least in the mood to somewhat compromise and not, just go right to the wall with it. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, but I think you cut quite a bit, and it's meeting them halfway.
Yeah, I echo what Alan said. I think that, to your point, trying to second guess what people are looking for, if we can't stick it here, nothing we could do is going to make any difference.
Karen?
I agree. I hate to do this, but it's better than 2%.
Not much, but
Yeah, much
Anything?
I agree that it's better than 2%, but I think this much of a cut is really irresponsible. I'm not in favor.
I don't really think any of us are in favor of it, as I said. And like I said, doesn't mean we can't throw the other number out there and see if it gets voted on yes, but I mean, Any more? All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry.
Opposed? Opposed. All right, motion passes. Look at your final numbers.
Total budget is 40,553,202, 2.93% increase.
No, thank you.
The mill rate is 0.66. .67% tax increase. Because we are using $500,000 out of fund balance to buy down the mill rate.
Yep.
Which was a decision that was made 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, you weren't here.
I know.
Never miss a meeting.
Just out of curiosity, the situation that was funded tonight versus what we've taken out of the budget, is there equal to that, so we've gone nowhere fast?
What do you mean?
I don't understand
To
the
what was
question.
funded, maybe I'm not speaking right, what was funded earlier to the district, I need to do this stuff, and versus what we've taken away from everybody, does it equal? I mean,
No.
does it say, oh,
No, we're reducing it by $400,000. We're going from the budget you put forward for the second referendum was $40,951,202. The new budget is $40,553,202, so just shy of $400,000. So we upped the warehouse point by 232, reduced capital by 200, and reduced Board of Ed 5,350.
More arguments.
So overall, it's $400,000 change, just shy of $400,000.
I always think about getting your glasses, then I'm borrowing my wife's.
So, are we comfortable ending here? Are there other things you want to look at? Where are we?
Are we gonna do something with we're sending forward the?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
Are
we're
we
done.
done? Yeah.
Okay.
Are we done? Are we looking at any other numbers?
I just, it's nothing as good.
So we need a motion for putting forward the question.
Shall the fiscal year 19-20 budget be approved at $40,553,202?
Okay. I move that we put forward a budget of $40,553,202 to referendum.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All I can say is, I feel you guys did the best you could. I just hope people get people out there for yeses, because the two will destroy everybody. So that's all I can say. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Good luck.
I'll send this worksheet out to everyone.
Thanks.
We're on to,
Hopefully we won't need it again, but.
yeah, we're on to old business.
Oh, we won't.
Maybe we'll.
Up to 2%, and that's that.
Oh, yeah. Can I have a motion to take a 5-minute break?
I'll move to take a 5-minute break.
Is there a second? All right. Let's go. All right, she's taking a 5-minute break. I'm going to
I want to know the building.
No, I meant you halfway.
2%.